MAGA Mike Johnson, the despicable MAGA Republican Speaker of the House, was visibly shaken as he visited Virginia Beach to try to prop up the flailing and failing campaign of MAGA Republican Congresswoman Jen Kiggans, who is expected to lose as a blue wave sweeps over Virginia and sweeps over the United States come the midterms. MAGA Mike Johnson was flustered as he tried to explain to the people of Virginia what he and Donald Trump and people like MAGA Republican Jen Kiggans were going to do now that they've destroyed our economy and have the United States in this never-ending war where things are only getting worse. Watch a visibly shaken MAGA Mike Johnson at this campaign stop for Jen Kiggans as he says, all right, I understand that gas prices are up, but it's only because of the Iran war, or should I say the Iran conflict. And we think the American people are cool with this never-ending war. No, MAGA Mike, the American people do not want to be in this catastrophic and unlawful war where you and Donald Trump and people like MAGA Republican Congresswoman Jen Kiggans are treating our courageous sailors and Marines aboard those aircraft carriers and our other courageous service members on bases throughout the region like absolute crap, like suckers and losers, which is what Donald Trump called our service members before. Here, play this clip of a visibly shaken MAGA Mike say, it's just the Iran conflict. It'll go away, right? Here, play this clip.
Yeah, the Iran conflict has been the cause, of course, of gas prices going up. It's drug on. I am grateful, and I think all Americans of good sense are grateful that we have the greatest fighting force in the world, in the history of the world. Our men and women in uniform are the brave people who preserve freedom and stand on that line every single day. We're grateful for that. Because of their prowess, because we are the great superpower on the planet, we were able to take the head off the snake. I mean, Iran was the largest state sponsor of terrorism. It was an evil regime that wanted the downfall of America and has been chanting death to America for almost 50 years. That objective was one that was carried through by every president in recent decades, and we finally had a commander-in-chief who understood their nuclear capability was almost there and that we had to act. We did.
So utterly pathetic. Then MAGA Mike Johnson at the stop in Virginia Beach claimed that Donald Trump is just laser focused on bringing down costs. And don't you worry, because that's his main focus. No, I think Donald Trump is laser focused on hiding in catering containers with Natalie Harp while he does 21,000 stock trades and does all these quid pro quo deals while he makes millions of dollars while the American people can't afford housing right now. Here, play this clip.
We are working every day. I can tell you, I talk to the president multiple times every day on average, okay? He is laser focused on this. He is laser focused on bringing down the cost for everybody, working on those affordability issues. But we don't just talk about it on our side, we do it. And that's what our record of policy and legislation and everything we've done in this Congress so far shows. So don't listen to the rhetoric. Look at the record. And when you do that, you see a candidate like Jen Kiggans who stands far above her opponents.
MAGA Mike is such a despicable, vile thing. More of MAGA Mike Johnson right here saying, well, here's our plan when it comes to Iran. We're just going to hope that other countries maybe step in and perhaps other coalitions are going to form. And these other coalitions, they're going to want to open the Strait of Hormuz so things will get better. Hey, MAGA Mike, didn't you listen to the latest propaganda talking points from Donald Trump and regime media? Donald Trump claims that we control the Strait of Hormuz, MAGA Mike, and that we will be annexing it, and it will be becoming the 51st state, MAGA Mike. Why don't you tell that to the people of Virginia, you liar? Here, play this clip.
Resolving the conflict after that is what we're in the process of now. I believe ultimately that there'll be a coalition of nations, a combination of allied NATO allies and Arab states in the region. Everybody in the world has an interest in the Strait of Hormuz being open for commerce. And so I believe we'll be getting into a new phase of that where we can calm this down. That will hold gas prices down to planet Earth. And that will also bring down grocery prices, for example, because the transport cost of the fuel adds to that. So,
oh man, MAGA Mike then continued to say, what we worry about is that if the Democrats take control, The next Congress will not be us arguing about marginal tax rates. We're going to be arguing about whether or not we have a republic anymore. Really, MAGA Mike? Because with your vile Project 2025 agenda, you've destroyed our democracy here in the United States. And the United States looks like a idiotic authoritarian regime, a true idiocracy authoritarian thing right now. Here, listen to what MAGA Mike has to say. Play this clip.
Congress now, in the next Congress, we will not be arguing over marginal tax rates or regulation. We'll be arguing over whether or not we're going to maintain our republic in our 251st year as a nation, or if we're going to go down this dark, dangerous, deadly road to communism.
And then MAGA Mike, of course, needs his boogeyman. And he's like, the thing about communism is it's killed tens of millions of people in the past century. And he said, and that's what's going to happen if you elect Democrats. Really, MAGA Mike, that's where you're going? I mean, you realize by ripping away healthcare, by cutting off USAID, with all of the war crimes that you've committed, you and this despicable regime have killed so many people already, and that's not even being reported on. I mean, how dare you? Oh, the boogeyman communists are gonna... No, really, MAGA Mike? The American people are just fed up that you've ripped away their healthcare. You pretend your disastrous budget bill, which you call the big, beautiful bill, has somehow helped people get cheaper healthcare when people know that's not the case. You've shut down hospitals. You've ripped away Medicaid. You've made it impossible for people to afford healthcare. But go on, MAGA Mike. The communists are coming for you. So pathetic. Here, play this clip.
Communism has been the reason that tens of millions of innocent people have been murdered in the 20th century alone. It's a dangerous, dark road. It's anti-American. We're not going there. So the answer to the question is, what's going to happen with the Democrat Party?
And more of a visibly shaken MAGA Mike right here talks about, and one of the things you got to worry about with Democrats is that they're going to take over the means of production. Really, MAGA Mike? Because the last time I checked, you and the Trump regime have taken over 30 companies with major equity stakes, while Donald Trump and his small cadre of right-wing oligarchs manipulate the market. And you all have created a communist social welfare-like system for the damn billionaires is what happened, MAGA Mike. But go on, MAGA Mike. You know who the biggest communist is right now, a la Stalin? Is Donald Trump, is the guy sitting in the Oval Office covering up child sex trafficking rings with you. You despicable people. Play this clip.
Because they believe that over 2 or 3 cycles, they'll be able to bring a wave of Marxists, communists into the Congress and take it over. And when we get to that stage, you know what they want to do? Take away and assume the means of production to the government. That means no more private property ownership. That means the small business owners across America who provide jobs and opportunity for people will be taken over by the government. It's a dangerous game.
Right. You look at every metric from the fact that oil right now is around $91 a barrel. Oil per gallon, the highest right now on average in the history of the United States at this time of year. You go and look at the strategic petroleum reserves at all-time low. You look at the fact that our service members are malnourished because they're not getting food from the Trump regime. I could go on and on and on with the terrible data points, but this is your dystopian reality now, MAGA Mike. Try to justify that. That's why you look so visibly shaken. I want to bring in the Democratic candidate who's running right now for Massachusetts' 6th congressional district, Dan Coe. You probably remember Dan. He's been on the MeidasTouch network a lot before he ran for Congress. He's appeared on the MeidasTouch network. He's helped co-host shows on the MeidasTouch network before. And really incredible to watch someone like Dan run because he is a technical, detailed, results-oriented person. Let's bring on Dan Coe, who's running for Massachusetts' 6th congressional district seat. Dan Coe, a former senior advisor in the Biden-Harris administration. He's running for Congress in Massachusetts' 6th congressional district. He's up by 19 points there in the primary. Don't worry, Dan. We'll talk about the primary for sure. But I just want to start off just chatting with you about your experience in the Biden-Harris administration, because as a senior advisor there, I mean, you were kind of the workhorse behind the scenes, and you would work with different cabinet officials. You would make sure that things were working competently, interfacing with top experts to ensure the best ideas were brought to the top, debated, not always utilized, but focusing on data. Like, remember that concept of it. And, that's an important part of government. I reflect on this Wall Street Journal op-ed from Peggy Noonan, and it's like with the articles, Trump is starting to look precarious. What do you mean starting to look precarious? And it goes on to say, it's not only referring to the catastrophic war in Iran, that the conflict is dangerous or that his attempts at diplomatic resolution seem half-baked, but that almost 6 months in, he seems utterly out of his depth. It's like you think you're just learning that right now, and there's this cruelty that the people in Massachusetts 6th congressional district see about the Trump regime. And then, Dan, it's also, though, the incompetence and the malfeasance and the constant lying to cover up mistakes and the maliciousness and this Ponzi scheme that's taking place as well. Talk to it based on your experience, Dan.
Well, first of all, Ben, thank you and the MeidasTouch Network for having me. Congratulations on all the work that you are doing to help defend our democracy right now. It is horrifying, as someone who used to work with all the different cabinets, to see just how incompetent this administration is. And just to give you one example, and I'll start with FEMA because it's approaching hurricane season again, Ben, and we are going to have some kind of climate incident, and this administration is not ready. Let me give you an example of what happened under Kristi Noem's FEMA. She put in a policy that anything under over $100,000, would have to be approved personally by her. So when the Texas flooding happened, many people remember that horrible incident. There was not somebody to approve pre-positioning rescue teams to save lives. And so people died. And then there was a call center that was set up that typically is what happens when there is an incident. And I used to work with mayors and governors when there was disaster response that had to shut down because it was the weekend and the FEMA director did not approve the extension of the call center. That is not a difference of political opinion. That is blatant incompetence. And we are seeing that whether it's RFK Jr.'s ridiculous conspiracy theories, all the way up to Donald Trump himself saying, oh, I heard a study somewhere that said that vaccines are linked to autism. This is not a difference, again, of policy, of partisanship. This is utter incompetence, and people are dying as a result.
I have an admission to make because, of course, I remember the Texas incident. I remember the flooding in the flooding from the Guadalupe River, the lack of notification from FEMA and a lot of the local officials, by the way, who, when you were in the Biden administration, you all gave them the money for the early warning systems in order to avoid precisely this. But they thought, I kid you not, I remember reporting on it, that the money was woke and that early warning systems were too woke for their communities. But I have this admission to make, which is, as you were saying that, I said, holy crap. I looked at the calendar. I said, we're in August. We are in hurricane season. I said, and then I said, FEMA. I haven't been thinking about FEMA for a while. I've been thinking about the catastrophic war. I've been thinking about him talking about golden ballrooms and reflecting pools and all of these things. And then I think to myself, crap, if I'm the reporter who covers all this stuff, I bet you a lot of people who were watching said, you know what? I remember MeidasTouch reporting on FEMA at the time, and we're back there. And, like I say, with the reflecting pool, the algae always comes. You can paint it blue for a little bit, but the algae comes back, and here we are. You can maybe last hurricane season, we got lucky. There wasn't the big one as we've seen in the past. But here we're in hurricane season. We have a degraded FEMA. We have all of these things. And it's like, that's why you need a competent government. But they want to overload us, Dan, with all of this stuff to have us distracted. And it's like, well, here we are again, hurricane season. What have you done? And it's like, an incompetent FEMA still exists.
I mean, here's what's so disgusting about this, Ben. I remember during the North Carolina hurricanes, if you remember, Asheville and regions all around North Carolina were devastated. I went with the Homeland Security advisor to one of the emergency call centers that they had set up, and I met a FEMA worker. Her entire job is whenever there is some major incident, she moves there uproots her entire life to move there, to make sure that her institutional memory is on the ground serving people as best as possible. It is her pride. And then you have an administration who comes in, fires everybody, thinks that DOJ and federal employees are a waste, and FEMA staff has either been morally degraded or completely laid off. And so that is the scary thing about this president and this administration, to your point. When the hurricane happens and when this government is not ready, this is not a president who will admit that he made the wrong choices. He will just blame the local officials and say it's all their fault. Local officials are working so hard every single day, as are these federal employees. This is a president who mocks them, degrades them, and will cost lives as a result of his incompetence.
Because that's what he's good at, the bad things. What he does well, and I don't mean this to applaud him, is he blames people. And he's the ultimate blamer, the ultimate not
the blamer in chief.
And when it's a catastrophic situation and people are confused, rarely in our history was that used, Dan, as a point of division. It was always something, let's come together as a nation, let's figure this out. But Trump said, you know what? That's when people are at their most vulnerable, and they'll buy my bullshit the most when they're suffering because I'll give them an easy answer. Aha. You remember North Carolina. Biden is stealing your money and he's giving it to the immigrants in North Carolina. So while Biden was doing the nuts, and you were out there doing the nuts and bolts with the administration, doing everything that was supposed to be done, while people like you were out there doing, he was out there causing division in the Biden administration, you know, and the other events like that. So how do we confront it, though? I mean, it's the thesis of my book, too. But I want to hear from you because you're running for office, a new generation. You've been on the MeidasTouch network. People will remember you. We've done a lot of videos together back in the past. So for me, it's truly incredible to see my peeps running for Congress and seeing people out there and my generation and people our age, you know, out there saying, here's how we get out of this hell. And that's the thesis of the book that I put out. How do we get out of this hell, Dan? You know, what do we do so we get out of this loop, this unhealthy loop, though, of, you know, someone tries to fix it, but then the firefighter's blamed as the arsonist?
You know, it's interesting because there's all this debate in the Democratic Party about ideology. Where do you identify yourself? What do voters want? At the end of the day, I think voters want fighters. They want fighters who, despite how crazy our leader may be, that we are not going to let him off the hook a single friggin' inch, whether it is what happened in FEMA. Or let me give you just another small example. The wage and hour division. I used to be chief of staff at the Department of Labor. If you are a server and your tips are being stolen, the wage and hour division exists to help give you and restore those wages. He has gutted the inspectors and the people who actually deliver those services. We need to highlight those things. We can't let any of this go. This is a president who has designed a psychological agenda against our country to allow him to get away with stuff that he did the day before because he's doing something crazier the next day. And many people in DC, including many Democrats, have just kind of glossed over it and don't get specific about what he is doing wrong. We need to hold him accountable for what he's done in the wage and hour division. We need to hold him accountable for what he is proposing at the VA, 80,000 jobs proposed to cut at the VA. We need to hold him accountable for the fact that he's trying to cut the program that screens black lung disease for minors. Heck, we need to hold him accountable for the $800 million he's trying to cut from the National Park Service so that we don't have national parks anymore. But yet, for some reason, we forget or we don't pay attention to those specifics. I think people are hungry for the specifics about what this president is doing, fighting back, holding him accountable, and making sure that people know that Democrats are fighting for something, not just against something.
Yeah, you know, when you say that, it just kind of triggered in my mind too. It's like whatever that crazy thing is he has to distract from the other thing, it's like they have a chart that they just kind of keep, like, if this, then just go there. And I mean it seriously because, you know, you had the MeidasTouch reporting. Aaron Parnas has done an incredible job.
Amazing job.
Horrific conditions aboard these super carriers. And all of the families are reaching out to MeidasTouch. And again, it's from the Abraham Lincoln and the George H.W. Bush and all of these super carriers. And then so what does Donald Trump do? He's got a super carrier announcement that he makes in the past 24 hours. And you're like, okay, is it going to be to help the troops? Like, no. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take away the kind of magnetic launch pads that we have aboard there that every Navy officer says is what you need, and what our Air Force says is what you need in order to, launch these jets off the small runways on the air carriers. He goes, and we're going to go back to like steam. We need steam. We like it. And everyone's like, what do you like steam? What are you even talking about? You like steam? And then it becomes this crazy thing. Trump wants steam and da. And this is what he's going to do. And by the way, it ends up costing us billions and billions of dollars. But I think, to your point, it's an attempt to divert from the fact that there are military families who are suffering. There are our brave and courageous sailors and Marines on the supercarriers who are suffering. The wage and hour issues. These are people. These are Americans. These are people who are impacted by this horrible, horrible stuff every damn day. And he could live in his golden ballrooms and whatever, but the people are struggling. And that's why I'm glad you run. And where can people learn, Dan? Final message to our 7 million subscribers. And I know we're 2 weeks away. You got this big endorsement from both Biden and Harris. And you worked incredibly well in that, just again, nuts and bolts. And I think people look back and go, that's what I want. I want competence. Where can people learn more about the campaign, and what do you want to say?
Learn at kohforcongress.com. And one other thing I wanted to say, Ben, is you talk about the distraction machine this president has, and it's very effective, and it tricks a lot of Democrats too. And we can't fall for it, because he is trying to distract from what we could be as a nation. We could have $10 a day childcare. We could cap our utility bills at 6% of our income. We could cap rent at 30% of income. We could restore the child tax credit that cut child poverty in half. We could have Medicare for all. And just reversing Trump's tax cuts in 2017 would create trillions of dollars to that end. Tax cuts to the first trillionaire like Elon Musk, and have money left over potentially for things like addressing the debt. That's what he doesn't want us to talk about, because that is the trade-off we are making. Tax cuts to the wealthy, enriching himself and his family, creating ballrooms based on his own ego, or helping working class people actually live. We can do that if we fight with the right facts, with the right data, and we take on this president every day. That's what this campaign is all about. There are fighters all across the country, I think, hungry for that change. And that's something that I would deliver if I'm fortunate enough to get elected on day one.
Dan Coe, running for Congress, Massachusetts 6th Congressional District, currently up by 19 points in the latest polling there. But I know you're not taking any of those 19 points in that lead for granted right there.
No, sir.
You are a marathon runner as well. And I know you are pacing, but sprinting to the finish line as well.
Yes,
so thanks for joining us, Dan.
Thank you, Ben.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers.
Before you go, our book, WTF America, is available for pre-order now. It's the story of how we got here and how we fight our way back. To pre-order, scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Let's do this.